Alright, alright. What's really going on? Bitcoin, cryptocurrency. Today, going to be taking a look at XLM, Stellar, Lumen. Going to be taking a look at some of these key technical aspects of price action moving forward. Going to be assessing some of the pivotal areas of support and resistance I believe we're going to be interacting with in the very near future here. Let me know in the comments down below. Are you bullish? Are you bearish? Do you trade? Do you hold? Or do you let the price action unfold? What are you doing with your bag if you have one? Are you bullish on price action? Do you think we've found support? Are we likely to rally back upward to that, 70 cents, 80 cents that we came from in the not so distant past? Or are we bearish and support has yet to be found and we have some more downside ahead of us? These lower levels are going to present themselves before we can kind of continue upward, or are we heading straight to zero? Let me know your thoughts on the direction of price action down in the comment section down below. Now jumping right into it to kind of recap this very aggressive phase of bullish uptrend, parabolic pumps to consolidation kind of downward between the sort of like end of that November, sort of like September, October, November consolidation of 2020. We have examples of price action rallying upward over hundreds of percentages, followed by tens of days of consolidation downward towards support. And so after this sort of like second example of this kind of vertical spike to consolidation downward, brings us into this range above kind of 24 cents all the way up to that 70 or 80 cents sort of swing high that we had. We are now returning to this very critical 24-cent level. And so price action does tend to have the want to consolidate for however long it needs to towards support before it can find its way back upward. I do believe the fundamentals of XLM are still quite bullish in the long term, and I do believe more all-time highs are ahead of us. And the bullishness of XLM fundamentally, I do believe, is still present, although some technical downside and sell pressure is present as well, and perhaps some more attempts at support is needed before we can continue the uptrend. So these pivotal levels, I believe, between 24 cents and 38 cents are going to be the range we could stay kind of trapped between for a period of time moving forward. With this candle on the kind of 22nd of June reaching all the way down to 19 cents is a tad short-term bearish in my opinion, and perhaps might suggest another attempt at the 24-cent level to kind of solidify support. Price action, we can see an example on the kind of 23rd of February all the way to the beginning of March of this year, consolidating relatively sideways toward that very crucial 38-cent level as support before finding support at that level and setting us to what was relative like higher highs compared to the 13th of February, sent us to that swing high on the kind of like 60 to 68 cents there on the 14th of April. And so that level, I do believe, is going to be very significant resistance moving forward. We see price action interacting with that 38 cents again on the kind of like following the 19th of May kind of drop there. This level of consolidation for like about 20 days almost over 2 weeks around that 38 cents was very pivotal in the short term. So support found at that range would have been kind of more bullish, and we could have expected the uptrend to continue sooner than later, but this break downward does perhaps suggest a more midterm phase of consolidation, and perhaps a trend or price action similar to that kind of like end of February to April sort of sideways might be needed before we can kind of continue our way kind of back upward. But what we consider EngineeringRobo, along with the fettuccine lines of zucchinis, Bugattis, Illuminatis, and bikinis, we can see a new perspective come into play. Significant potential resistance at that 0.382 Fibonacci line at 32 cents before my 38-cent resistance. That could be another kind of pivotal point that price action gets another rejection from, and we might have to attempt another kind of perhaps higher low support level before we kind of break that range, and then perhaps confirm that level as support before we can attempt even 38 cents, which at the moment is correlating with the 200 daily moving average, which is suggesting some very high sell pressure presence, very technical bearish indicator at the moment. And it's going to suggest some very high sell pressure along the underside of that. And so at the moment, it does seem to be correlating with that level. Just above there is that 0.5 Fibonacci line at 41 cents. So there is some very significant resistance kind of moving forward, even past that 0.382 line there. Potential support at the 0.236 level is another kind of midterm hope for kind of bullish recovery. If we fail to hold 24 cents, we can be more short-term bullish if support is found at 24 cents. But say we are bearish enough to break, we still have another chance of support at the 0.236 line at 21 cents. So we have sell 4 against USDT, price action below the 200 daily moving average. We're attempting to find support along these kind of key levels here. Very pivotal price action and critical moments for Stellar. When we consider XLM, against the price of Bitcoin, we can see a new perspective come into play. A kind of another example at an attempt to find support at a key level here. This 750 Satoshi level is going to be very crucial moving forward. I do believe holding that range will be more bullish for us in the short term, and might give us the momentum to get back up into these highs that we kind of just came from. Significant resistance will be found above 1206 Satoshi and under kind of like 1289 Satoshi. We will have to have a lot of momentum to kind of break that range and perhaps confirm it as support to get back up to these kind of swing highs and resistance found at 1563. And so, new perspective comes into play when we consider EngineeringRobo along with the fettuccine lines of zucchinis, martinis, bikinis, illuminati, and geometries. We can see a new perspective coming to come into play here. That 0.382 Fibonacci line is going to be some local resistance moving forward. Potential rejection of that 839 Satoshi level could be pending once we get up there. In addition to price action being below that 200 daily moving average against the price of Bitcoin is a tad bearish in the kind of midterm here, and could suggest perhaps a prolonged phase of accumulation in the kind of midterm before we can find our way upward. Price action above the 200 daily moving average, we can be a tad more bullish. Although until then, we're looking at some very high technical sell pressure, along with that kind of sell for present against the price of Bitcoin. Resistance just ahead of us. Potential support at that 750 level is going to be critical moving forward. If we fail to hold there, that 0.236 line is kind of our sort of like last hope for potential support. So price action fundamentally, I do believe, is still bullish in the kind of like much longer term, and we can expect to see some highs in XLM's future. Although perhaps some midterm sideways, some accumulation, some some lower levels might present themselves in the kind of very near future here before we can find our way back upward and let the uptrend kind of continue. Lots going on with price action against Bitcoin. What we consider Bitcoin against USDT. We can see a new perspective come into play. We consider price action interacting with that very crucial 0.5 Fibonacci line at 34,300. That is a very, very pivotal level moving forward. Price action attempting to interact with it, trying to see if it is support or resistance. That will kind of suggest what will happen in the short term kind of moving forward here. If we can find support along that 0.5 line, that perhaps might give us the momentum to fight our way all the way back up to the 0.618, which is going to be a very significant level of resistance, which could slap us all the way back down to where we came from, which is similar to what happened on the kind of 15th of June. We had this run up from the 9th of June upon support found at the kind of 0.5 Fibonacci line there after bouncing off 32K. We rallied all the way up, got near to the 0.618 line, but price action exhausted, and we were slapped all the way back down to kind of where we are currently. Price action broke that 0.5 Fibonacci line on the kind of 21st of June to attempt interaction with that 32K level, a very significant level of support that we could be bearish enough to perhaps come down to if this 0.5 line rejects us. Say we fail to hold that 32K level, I do have still long-term bullish hope, even if we're found at the 0.382 Fibonacci line at 27K. I do believe that'll be a great level of accumulation moving forward if we're bearish enough to kind of get down to it. A more scarier low will be found at the 0.236 Fibonacci line at 18,000, kind of 100 there, just below potential support at 19,000. And so those are going to be some very scary levels for some new investors that perhaps invested at what appears to be a local top between the kind of like middle of February of this year and just before kind of May. Price action back in the kind of teens, low 20s, I do believe would be very jarring for new investors, but in the long term, that would be very bullish for the trend upward and might be what's necessary for the uptrend to continue, as we do have an example of price action being very bullish since the kind of September, October, November kind of accumulation, September and October here really, accumulation of 2020. We rallied kind of very aggressively through previous all-time highs at like 19K, plowing all the way through to where we are kind of currently. And so retests of these lower levels, I do believe, are quite healthy for the trend in the long term. And so, there's never a bad time to buy Bitcoin, only better times. And so, there's lots going on in the crypto sphere here. Smart money will always be accumulating, but perhaps, like I said, these new investors that might have been accumulating more recently are, perhaps quite jarred from these kind of recent aggressive kind of lows. So we do have price action in a relatively bearish state at the moment. Very high technical sell pressure. We have EngineeringRobo with a sell for. We have price action below the 200 daily moving average, suggesting some very high technical bearish pressure. these breaks downward and all these rejections as soon as we pump are kind of coming from this very high technical suggested sell pressure. But those pumps, I do believe, are from the fundamental buy pressure of Bitcoin at these levels still. And so, the demand for Bitcoin is ever so present. And so, even if we find ourselves at these crazy lows, I do believe that would still be a great time to accumulate before we can break all-time highs and get to that six-figure range that is, just around the corner. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for hearing my analysis. Try EngineeringRobo free with a link in the description. Subscribe here on YouTube. Check out all the other social media down below. Let me know what you're doing with your bag. If you have one, do you trade XLM? Do you trade Bitcoin? Are you accumulating in these lows? Have you sold your whole bag? What are you doing during this FUD-filled moments in the crypto sphere here? Thank you for tuning in, and tune in for the next one.